This is episode 42 of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and Russell is with me today for our first installment of our Animorphs Re-Read book club, whatever you want to call it.
Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about this. It's been it's been in the works for a little bit, and
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, since I was like halfway through the series before,
right.
and we did our last episode about it, but now we're actually reading it, and so far we've read the first 4 books, and I'm not sure in some ways how we're going to fit discussion into one episode for the 4 books.
I think that that's going to be our challenge throughout this process. There's always more that we could discuss, but given the length of the series, I don't think we should just do one episode per book.
No, we'd be here for years. We're already going to be doing this for a year and a half, so
Oh.
to give us enough time to read. But
And I will openly admit that I have not read the entire series yet, ever. And so while we're going through some of the books that I've read already, it'll be interesting to see towards the later installments how my reactions are.
oh yeah, I've already made some notes for later books based on what we read in these first 4 books.
Sure.
So I'll be harkening back to a few things between now and the last episode of this. Actually, I've already made some notes for the last book.
Excellent.
So we'll go ahead with your recommendation, and then after we're done that, we'll jump into the books.
Okay, well, my recommendation is a song by the band Home Free, and they're an a cappella band that won the show The Sing Off. It's been over 10 years now, right? And um, they they kind of have a country flair, I feel like, right? But one song that really kind of got them popular, I think it was during COVID that they first recorded it, and then they did a concert video of it, and that's the one that I like to watch. It's a sea shanty medley, and so it's a combination of a bunch of sea shanty songs, and it's all a cappella, which just blows my mind to be able to hear it. It's one of my daughter's favorite songs that we first introduced Home Free to her with. And she just recently was listening to it again and was clapping along and singing along as best as she could. And I thought that it was uh, a good recommendation. Very well done. How they're able to combine everything. And again, it blows my mind that all the sounds and everything that you're hearing is all just made with the human voice. The exception being that they do clap a little bit and they do, some other percussion type things, but
But
there's
it's still
no
with the human
instruments.
body. It's not
Yes,
instruments.
correct, exactly. And so it's a fun one and well worth the listen. And we've had many a dance party to it, and it's just a good fun song. So I'll tell a quick story about this. We actually had the opportunity of seeing Home Free perform live in Spokane recently, and my daughter was asleep when they sang this song. So she missed it live, but she still enjoyed
Aww,
watching it. It
poor
was,
girl.
yeah.
Yeah. I had a thought there and I lost it. We'll skip it.
That's all right. So
Anything?
I know I've had lots of musical write ups and musical recommendations and things like that. So I'm just following that same theme here a little bit with
Sounds
another
great.
musical recommendation. So
Sounds great. Um, my recommendation is the Heroes of Olympus series. It's the sequel to or sequel spinoff to Percy Jackson. Got the first 5 books of Percy Jackson, and then Heroes of Olympus is the next 5 books. I'm only into the 3rd book right now, Mark of Athena, but I've read The Lost Hero and Son of Neptune already, and I feel like I can confidently recommend the series of 5. I'm one of the few people, I swear, who enjoyed the Percy Jackson movie back in the day. At least the first one. The second one, especially after reading the book, I'm like, that's nothing like the
yeah,
book. Um, the first one took some creative liberties with the movie. The second one, I don't know what they were thinking. But especially with the Disney Plus series was just announced to release its second season in December this year, and I've just been ever since that the first season came out. I've been on a Percy Jackson kick. So now I'm finally into the second series in the franchise, and not slowing down anytime soon. It feels like.
Excellent. Yeah, I
I'll
remember.
have I'll have more to say about it when I finish the 5 books, I'm sure.
There you go. I enjoyed the first five. I have never gotten into the second one, so it's a good recommendation. I'll have to check it out.
The only complaint I have so far is that the second book, Son of Neptune, is not available on Audible in English. It's the only book in the franchise that it's not like anywhere. I had to like find a bootleg version on YouTube to listen to, and it was a pain to go looking for that. So, because I tried to find it on Libby, but it was going to be 8 weeks before it was available on the Libby app. So that's my biggest complaint about it is that I had a struggle finding the second book.
That's
So
very interesting. Not a
yeah,
common
yeah, and
problem on Audible.
it's randomly just that one book.
Hmm.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. All right, you ready for Animorphs?
Let's do it.
So, like I said, we read the first 4 books so far for this episode. The Invasion, The Visitor, The Encounter, and The Message. I'd consider the first and fourth one essential reading. Um, if you're following along with us, I'll include the link, but we didn't have any comments or messages about these 4 books, so I assume it's just you and me, which is that's still fun in my mind. But
Agreed.
yeah, the Invasion and the Message are the essential reading ones. Any of the filler books, well, at this stage, most of the filler books are still good for character development and stuff. Um, but I'm sure we'll spend most of our time discussing the first and fourth book because of the essential nature of the plot. Um,
Sure.
I mean, the invasion, this is where it begins. This is when Elfangor, or Elfangor in the audiobook, I never know how to pronounce it exactly. Elfangor. Um, he shows up, they meet Visser 3, first morphs, first attack on the Yerk pool.
Yeah,
Um,
they pack a lot into the first book. I think one of the things that was amazing to me was just how quickly they get to going through the construction site and obtaining the power to morph. Like I think I had forgotten how quickly that happens, within the first couple of chapters of the book. And so it just it's because they're such short books, you kind of have to almost expect that things are going to happen at warp speed almost. And I think that was a surprise for me to just be reminded of that, like how quickly it happens. So
well, and I'll say this about some of the later books too, but sometimes we literally are thrown into the action. There are some books where they're in the middle of the fight with the Yerks when the book starts,
sure,
and then I'll bring this up, I think, especially with book 19, is it starts with a battle, and then Cassie's left with the moral quandaries, which is where lots of her books kind of
yeah,
fit anyways, is the
right,
moral, like, relativism of the whole thing.
sure,
But yeah, it that becomes the springboard for the book. This one, it's like they go from one thing to the next to the next.
right,
Sometimes you have like that soft open, so to speak, like we'll talk about with the third book, where it's like there's some gimmick going on at the beginning that launches off the story, but sometimes we're just thrown right into it with the
right,
construction site.
right. I
But I mean,
think
we go from the construction site to Tobias and Jake doing their first morphs to discovering Tom is a controller to spying on Chapman to getting battle morphs to the
right.
Yerk pool. It's like boom, 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 boom. Like there's no slowing down in the first
Yeah,
book.
yep, you're right. I thought um, I think again, just some of the commentary there on the construction site. You see some of the ruthlessness of Visser 3, and then you see the ruthlessness of the Yerks in general, where they're just willing to, okay, we'll just take whoever we can find to show that we've taken care of them, and
Mm-hmm.
just again, which is odd, I think, considering it is. I remember reading these like in elementary school, but as we addressed in kind of the first, introductory that when we were first introducing kind of that we were going to be doing the book club, we kind of pointed out there's some deep stuff that goes on here, right? And so,
I mean,
uh,
Chapman, the controller,
yeah,
literally asks for the heads
yeah,
on a stick. Basically, it's like
right,
this is a kid's
yeah,
book. What are you
right.
doing, guys?
So she does. I will say that K.A. Applegate does do a good job of not being graphic with the violence that is in the books, right? Like it's not.
Just graphic with the morphing process.
Yes, right. That's interesting, isn't it? Right? Everybody seems to have nightmares after morphing just watching that process happen, right? So,
Oh yeah.
um,
Well, and
which
just how detailed she is with the bones crunching and the organs
sure,
dissolving. It's
right, right, yep. And
yeah,
I can't imagine Jake's. There a lot of emotions going on there, right? He's kind of picked as the leader, and
Mhm.
it's kind of like it just becomes a unspoken thing, like, okay, you're the leader, and he's like, what? Okay, I guess I'm jumping into this role, to
Yeah,
the heartbreak of like Tom being a controller and recognizing that that's going on. And I did think it's interesting how pushy it seemed like Tom was about the sharing in the first book, and it doesn't seem to be the case in subsequent books. um,
yeah.
just a question there about kind of how that happens. So
There are a couple things with the first couple books that I'm like, this doesn't like continue on in the later books, but it's
yeah,
yeah. Even like, I mean, I kind of wish Cassie made the point in the first book that like with them getting animal morphs, it's like Mother Earth was fighting back against the Yerks, and I wish that theme. I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but in some ways I kind of wish that theme would have continued through the books, and it
sure,
rarely came up because I think that's a powerful thing that like Earth was fighting back, but
sure, yeah,
instead the theme that comes out more often is Marco's jokes.
yeah, that's true.
Of course, the name Animorphs comes out of a joke, right?
Sure, right, which is just interesting how that, that's the name of the whole series, but it just starts as a joke from Marco, and
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 then Jake's like, "Yep, that fits."
yeah, right. It works out. So the whole I do think it's interesting, just the instincts of first morphs kind of showing up with the lizard and him eating a spider and stuff like that. We kind of get that, and that theme does continue on, right? We see kind of how the first time they do morphs in subsequent books seems to be a something that
Oh,
they have to deal with.
just wait till we get to the ants and the termites and the
Yes,
bees.
right. Yeah, it's
Those
all
hive mind insects
right,
are the worst ones.
right, exactly. So um, I think, just moving on to book two, it is remarkable to kind of see the implications of what the invasion is doing for Rachel and for her friend circle. I thought it was just heartbreaking to see some of the things going on in Melissa's household. Rachel's friend Melissa, when Rachel goes into the house as a cat and is kind of privy to some of the situations there where her parents just become totally disconnected from her,
Hmm.
and that's just awful. One of the notes here is that we wish we had more Melissa, because this is the only book that I can recall where we have any sort of uh, insight
Real
into what's going
involvement.
on. Yeah, and I think that, like, as a friend, Rachel would be wanting to do more. In essence, it feels like this becomes like a motivating factor for Rachel, although I don't know that she needed a motivating factor to be fighting
No,
the year.
especially as time goes on.
Right. But this definitely could have been a springboard moment for her to be like, okay, this is why I'm fighting these guys, because I want Melissa to be able to have her parents back. And anyways, it just is it's amazing to just see, like, okay, you need to have your parents present, and Melissa doesn't have that, and it has big time implications for her.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's like on one hand, it's indicative of just the power of her father's love that he was able to, and her mother as well. Although her mother was more of a willing participant with the controllers.
Right.
Um, but her father, his love of his daughter was so powerful that he was able to fight back against his Yerk pretty powerfully.
Yes.
He wasn't able to keep it up, but he was like, "I will fight you, and I will fight you at the most inconvenient times
Right.
if you touch my daughter."
Right.
And so, and even to stand up to Visser 3 like that was a big deal.
Right.
And I think you're right about Rachel's motivation for the fight, and I kind of feel like that's what the first 5 books or so kind of illustrate is we get each main character, each of the 5 kids, and their motivation for the fight. So to speak, like Jake with his brother, Rachel. I mean, I feel like they kind of left Melissa alone for her own safety after this book,
Sure.
but still, like Rachel saw the impact that it had on Melissa, and realizing that it's not just Melissa, it's every kid who has a controller as a parent, because
Right.
the Yerks might be able to mimic what the human would do, but they can't mimic the feeling or the love, except in rare cases, which I'll get to in Visser, I'm sure.
Right. Right. Well, and not just mimic, but like openly reject that, right? Like it just seems like they're just sitting around. Melissa's just kind of left to her own devices to do her homework and stuff like that. There's no
Yeah, they don't even
showing it.
try.
Right. Yeah.
At
So,
least, like, Tom still acts like Jake's brother, which
right.
maybe as a brother is a little bit easier than as a parent,
Right.
but Tom still acts like his brother.
I guess it's just interesting that Chapman is still able to go about his duties as a vice principal, but when it comes to being a parent, like the Yerk is just like, all right, nope, that's it. I am only existing as a parent. I'm not even trying to act like one. So,
Makes me kind of wonder how long this has been going on, because,
right.
like, maybe the Yerk did try and was just like, you know, fell into complacency that, you
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
But we're going to need to revisit Chapman and his motivations later, but
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that one,
Yep.
because that doesn't come till later. I have thoughts, and we'll see.
He does come
Um,
up throughout the series, and so it is interesting to just kind of see that he continues to be a character, but Melissa doesn't. So, book three, I like
I
this
will
one
say
has.
one more thing
Oh,
about
yeah.
Melissa is I know that it seems like some fans wanted her to be a new Animorph, like around the time that they got the blue box with David,
Mm-hmm.
that like they knew that Melissa was not a controller, why not recruit her? But again, I think in many ways that's like got to keep her safe.
Yeah.
You know, recruiting her would have like I can see it both ways. They knew she was a safe recruit, but also she was so enmeshed in that situation, especially with Chapman being a high-ranking controller, that to pull her in would have been dangerous for all of them.
Yeah.
So I
I
can see it
agree.
both ways.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, book 3.
This one was the first book, Animorph book, that I ever read, and so it's always fun to go back and revisit it. I do think it's interesting. You mentioned shenanigans that kind of the book opens with, and we see this as a frequent theme, I think, with some of the books. Each of the characters kind of is like, all right, I've got this morphing power, and yes, I'm using it to fight the Yerks, but I also can use it for other purposes. And in this case, Tobias uses it to
Bria
free
Hawk.
another hawk. Yeah, right. Um, and so, and again, we'll see that in subsequent books where that's a common thing that these characters choose to do is use their powers for good and not always just to fight the Yerks. You have a note here that Tobias books always end up being so tragic, and it's true.
I
He
mean,
seems
there's
to
so
be the.
much like inner dialogue and turmoil that he
Yeah,
goes through, and
right,
it's sad that we only get only like every 10 books is
right.
Tobias, basically, because I think she learned this later on, that fans enjoyed Tobias books more than she thought they would, so that's why
Sure.
towards the end he and Axe get more books. They kind
Oh,
of
is
go
that
into a
right?
regular rotation with the others, but it's only like for the last dozen books, so it doesn't make a ton of difference, but I
That's
wish we had
interesting.
more. But
Yeah.
it's, yeah, it seems like every time we have a Tobias book, there's some kind of emotional turmoil. Um, this one, it's he has to accept his state as a hawk because he doesn't know that the Ellimist is going to show up 10 books later. He doesn't know that he's going to have, but even then, it's like this book he accepts that he needs to feed as a hawk, but he also throughout the series, all the way through the end, it's, you know, am I a hawk? Am I a human at this point? And
Right.
a lot of the times it's like halfway in between, but it's this, where do I fit in the world? Which we can all
I
kind
guess
of relate to that to some extent. Like, where do I fit?
sure. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess spoiler. End of book one, we find out that he stayed in Morph too long, right? Which is I think an interesting element that jumps right in from the first book, that you have somebody who breaks the rules of morphing, so to speak, and we end up with this character who is trapped in Morph, and him, there's I also, this reading there was like this, not just the accepting of him being a hawk by him having to eat and hunt and things like that, which is an emotional um, side of things for him, but also just this longing to go be with this female hawk, almost, right, that he frees, and just interesting, the internal turmoil that he experiences, as you said, of being a hawk, but also recognizing that he was a boy at one point. And now, granted, I think he's always emotional because he, as a boy, was not living this great life by any means, and the fact that he was kind of just shuffled between relatives, he almost has this sense of freedom as a hawk, which is just a sad thing, that he feels better in an animal state compared to being in a human state. And
Oh
uh,
yeah.
I
Well,
think that
and I don't know if I don't know if you made it far enough in the series to see this before before we restarted, but there's speculation inside and outside of the book of, did Tobias stay in Morph past the 2 hour limit on purpose to escape
mm,
his life?
hmm
Because you can see throughout the first book just how much he loved being a hawk, and in some ways, he loved it a little too much, and that you find out later on. I think it said that like he doesn't even know like what did I like why did I do this, like,
yeah,
did I push the limit on purpose?
yeah.
But
And obviously, this, I feel like, is a big book, where it's, the first book, they kind of they attack the Yeerk pool, um, but here they take out like
they call it a truck ship.
truck ship. That's right, and he does it with just one Dracon beam, and I jokingly said, "Boy, he should have held to you." I said that he should have held on to that Dracon beam. They might have been able to do more damage, right? But
Yep.
it's just one of those things that. Uh, that they were able to make a dent in a way that they hadn't been able to do before. So
Well, and that's what a lot of these victories end up being, is they slow the Yerks down and like aggravate them and kind of prolong things, but half the time it's, getting out alive that's the victory.
that's it, right? Which, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards here with going back to book one. I
That's all
don't know
right.
how nobody in the Yerk pool saw that there were humans morphing there. So I know that that's a big theme, is just trying to keep their identity as humans under wraps and making it seem like they are a group of Andalite bandits. But I feel like there were a lot of opportunities for a lot of people to see people morphing, but maybe it was just too chaotic or something like that. And anyways,
Yeah, and I mean, we get descriptions of the Yerk pool in that book and at other times that like it's storage, it's like a warehouse, it's the Yerk
sure,
pool, it's like a whole city. So there's, yeah, there's controllers everywhere, but there's also plenty of places to hide and,
yeah,
you know, a
sure.
smidge, a small amount of privacy, at least enough that, once the morph is far enough along, you wouldn't be able to tell that
Mm,
they were part human, part animal. You'd just know they were morphing, so a lot of controllers would just assume that they were Andalites.
Gotcha.
They saw them halfway through, I figure. But yeah, that does become a major thing for like the first 45 books or so, is that, like, we can't let them know. We can't let them know
Sure.
because it's the only way that they were able to keep their families safe.
Right.
All right, you ready for book 4?
Yes, sir.
This is where our team becomes complete because we get Axe. Um, we get Cassie being an unwilling leader and not wanting to take the responsibility of, if we go on this mission, it's my fault if people get hurt. And like I said, the Cassie books always seem to be this filled with moral questions of, like, is it ethical to morph into a dolphin? Is it ethical to fight the Yerks and have to deal with the aftermath of this and that? Can we kill human controllers, or is it okay to kill the Hork-Bajir controllers, or all over the place? Um, but like I was saying, with everyone kind of getting their motivation in these first few books, especially after Axe tells them that it's not just enslaving the humans that the Yerks would do, it's they would decimate the earth. With how much of a tree hugger and animal lover that Cassie is, I mean, she's like, she's talks about, like, she never gets angry, but this just enraged her that that they would destroy her earth.
Yep. Yeah, it is interesting just to see that character development of her finding her motivation, right? Oh, okay, this isn't just about enslaving humans and making them controllers. This is about just that they're just world killers is kind of what
Yeah.
the Yerk
Yeah,
people
it's not
are.
just about one race, it's about all the races.
Yeah. So
So,
then
and I mean, she
it's
was already pretty invested as it was because she has a good moral compass, but to find out that it's the whole earth that she was saving, not just the humans, that changed things even more for her.
agreed. And again, interesting, harkening back to that theme of the Earth fighting against the Yerks. You have the whales coming to assist.
Oh, I
Uh,
loved that. I
that
loved
was
that
great, wasn't it?
because, like, yeah, like, I wrote that note about Mother Earth fighting back, and we don't really get that theme throughout the series. But then when I was listening to the fourth book and the whales coming to help, they made the comment of, like, it's like the ocean's fighting back against this abomination, and I'm
Yeah,
like, that I wish we had more of that somehow, like, just
sure,
sprinkled throughout the series. And I'm glad that they
sure.
brought it back at least that once. But
Also, this is our first instance where we have somebody who's almost mortally wounded, and we see that
oh
if
yeah,
you come out of morph, you can offset the effects of a wound, right? So,
right, because it's all DNA. Like, we get it in more intense, more mortally wounded in other situations. But yeah,
yes,
Marco is able to save himself by coming out of the dolphin morph, which is, I'm glad that they put that in there and established that, like, pseudoscience that it's the DNA it's based off of.
right,
Although it makes me wonder with, like, their morphing suits, especially once they get, like, Axe to incorporate a morphing suit into his human morph. I'm like, how does that work?
sure,
Because,
yeah,
but I mean, we'll get more into the pseudoscience of morphing and zero space in later books.
boy,
But
yeah,
it does make me wonder sometimes. It's like the morphing suit isn't part of his DNA, and then when Tobias gets his ability to morph back and he gets his human form as a morph, I'm like, does his human form age, or is he always that 12-year-old or however old they are?
sure.
Like, as the years go on in the war, does he age into adulthood in his human morph, or is he still 12? I don't know.
Those are great questions.
The pseudoscience that wasn't answered as far as I can remember.
That's right. There you go. It is interesting as well to just see Cassie's motherly instinct because after Marco's injured, right, she recognizes, like, okay, somebody needs to check on him. Yeah, he's alive, but he almost died, and he is the least willing Animorph, right?
Yeah.
recognizing that he's all that his dad has, and so she goes over to visit him just to check up on him and see how he's doing.
That
Um,
makes me really excited for the next book, but we'll leave that for the next episode.
that's right. So,
But I don't know if that I wouldn't call that mothering necessarily. I think it's her guilt tripping herself. Like, I don't want to take
uh
responsibility for everyone being hurt and Marco being wounded like that. She's like, I'm responsible and I shouldn't have done that. And Marco's like, we do dangerous stuff every day. It's not your fault just because you're the one who had the dreams. So, as much as he's the unwilling participant, he's also the one that sees the battle most clearly. And we get that more and more as the series progresses that
yeah,
while Marco doesn't want to fight, even after the revelations of book 5, like he sees the battle most clearly compared to the others. They all have their strengths, and Marco has this intuition about battle strategy or what's safe or all this other stuff that even though he's unwilling in this book, so to speak, he's also like, no, this has to be done.
yep.
Like, it's not your responsibility to keep me safe.
That's a good insight. That it's not just it was more out of
I mean,
guilt,
it's probably
desire to
both.
caring. Yeah,
It's probably both, but it's, this whole book she's talking about how she's like, I don't know if I have the authority or it's, the responsibility of having everyone safe is on my shoulders. And it's like, no, it's everyone, they all have, even Marco has the ability to say, no, I opt out of this mission. And that happens later on. There's at least once I can think of that Cassie's like, the ethics of this mission I don't agree with. I'm sitting it out. And because she sat it out, she saved everyone, which that's like in the 30s or it's 40s. Like it's a ways away, so we won't touch that yet. I don't think you read that far yet, so we'll
nope.
come back to it, but it's, everyone has their agency, everyone has their choice. None of them are coerced. Yeah, maybe coerced a little bit, but in the end, they all choose the battle on their own for their own reasons. And even Marco in this one, because of the impact of seeing Elfangor killed, um, he's like, no, I'm coming. Like, I don't want to be in this fight, but I owe it to the Andalite.
Yep.
So even like Marco came on his own volition. So,
It's a good start to the series having these first four books, and I'm excited
oh
to
yeah,
see what we
I'd
get
have
next.
I'd have included the fifth book as well on this one because it's that first like introduction to the series. Except so much happens in the fifth book that I'm
Yeah,
like, we need to we need to have a more time to talk about that one.
I agree.
I will say one more thing about the fourth book and about Axe in particular, and this comes up throughout the series, of course. When he gets his human morph, um, trying out new sounds and stuff. Maybe you've experienced this with your daughter. I don't know, because mine's a couple of years older than yours. But my daughter, like, it sounds silly when Axe does it that he's trying out these sounds like when he first encounters cinnamon buns in later books. It's like buns, bun. He's trying out all the sounds, and it seems silly, but then after general conference, for like 2 days, my daughter, who's 5, was like, manifest, manifest. Like she's trying out these new words, and it's like now whenever I hear Axe trying out these mouth sounds, I'm gonna be thinking of her trying out new words because that's, I mean, a month ago it was lumber. Like I don't know where she learned the word lumber. Probably at preschool with whatever they were learning about. But it's like lumber, lumber, lumber. It's she's trying out these new words, and it's. I mean, it's that maybe it's that animal instinct that Axe is experiencing. The human instincts that you learn a new word, you try it out a few times. Although
Yeah,
Axe never really seems to get over that. It's very childlike, which is probably where a lot of our human instincts come from, is from the inner child.
that's a really good insight. That Axe is very childlike when he is in his human morph.
Just like no impulse
Yep,
control,
yep,
like
yep.
everything just.
Just
Although I
got to
do
try
find
it
it
out.
interesting that he can. I mean, he struggles to walk on two legs, but he's able to walk on two legs, which as we're in the physical therapy industry, like to be able to walk with no practice beforehand is kind of interesting because it's not,
Yeah.
but I mean, maybe it's because of him taking the DNA of the other kids where their muscles are already developed where they can walk.
I think also there's accessing the human DNA or instincts, right? You think about
Yeah,
other morphs, they just kind of let go, and the animal that they have acquired
it's
is able
true.
to take over. And so I wonder if there's an aspect of that developmentally
It's true.
he already has that intact within the DNA.
Just from a physical therapy perspective, like getting my patients to walk and stuff, I'm like, some of this is not intuitive. It's so
Sure.
it, like Axe getting it right off the bat. Same with speaking, that like, I mean, he's watched the others speak with their mouths, but and he has to kind of feel it out.
Right.
But and maybe that's part of why he plays with the mouth sounds, is so that he can get a handle on his speech. But also, I mean, just the ability to you're right, maybe it's human instincts, but I'm like, he's making all these words coherently just from hearing them, which is half of how kids learn to talk, right? But
Sure.
still, like that wasn't a lot of practice going into it, it seems like. But like you said, maybe we can chalk that up to human instincts.
The fact that the Andalites can speak English, maybe it's just because of their advanced intellect.
The thought speak makes sense because I feel like you'd hear that in whatever language you speak.
That's true.
But to speak it and to understand it, it's
I mean, I get that it has to be that way because the books are written in English. It's just one of those questions about, okay, what about their native tongue? How come that's not
yeah,
incorporated more? Because you do see them use, Andalitian language when describing certain things that happen.
yeah, words that we don't have in English.
Right.
We'll have to maybe address that again when we get to the Andalite Chronicles, because maybe there a universal translator is used. I like in Star Trek, Star Wars kind of thing. I
Sure.
don't know.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how that pops up because feel like that's the way we get the most Andalite backstory is when we get to that book.
Great.
Anything else you want to say about these?
I think it's been a really good introduction to the series, and it's going to be fun to continue to go through them and read them
Oh yeah.
and talk about them. So
Oh yeah, and I'll share I'll share the reading schedule again. I might have to update it based on how the summer is going to go. But if anyone wants to join us, send us a message on social media, Discord, and we'll talk about your insights as well when we get together. Trying to think of a good way to close off. I'm just going to go with Rachel. Let's do it.
excellent. Let's do it.
Marco, this is insane. Thank you for listening to the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we don't represent the church in any official capacity. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and to review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Select episodes are available on our YouTube channel. Show notes and additional content are available on our blog, latterdaysaintgeeks.com. Intro and outro music were provided by David Schradell.